All right, welcome to the Campus Pastor Collective. My name is Mark Cartright, your host. As always, today I'm joined by Anthony Johnson. He is with Radiant Life Church. You're out in the Northeast Ohio region. So we're in Wadsworth, We're in Akron, we're in Orrville. You kind of gave me a little bit about some of your church kind of dynamics of having you guys are a dinner church, which is super cool. It's something that we've actually, as a multi-site, not gotten into. Know some guys that have. And so I'm always intrigued by that. But let's start with you. How did you land in this role of being a campus pastor?
Yeah, so my wife and I, about a dozen years ago, planted a church in a neighborhood in Akron where we've lived for years. And we were enjoying it, did it for about 5, 6 years, and just felt like transition was coming. We weren't sure what that was going to be, but we were also completely committed to that church. And so I had no designs of going anywhere. And I had been serving with my now lead pastor, Lance Porubsky, in a different role with our fellowship. And we were like helping other pastors. And he invited me out to breakfast one day and just basically asked the question, like, what would it look like for us to partner together to see, even more church planting, multiplication, and like almost immediately, it was like that thing where you just know, like, oh, this is it, right? But I was like, hey, let me pray about it. More like, let me talk to my wife about it, and then we'll pray some. But yeah, we came on staff back in 2019. So we went from lead pastors to campus pastors, took our church plant and merged it in with Radiant Life Church. And then about 6 months later, spun that into a campus that was about 6 months before COVID hit. So we got baptized right into it right away. But yeah, that's kind of how we became campus pastors.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're the second guy I've had on where your experience as campus pastor. Zach, I had on last week. He was the same deal. His first, he started in January of 2020. And it's like, bro, you get test of fire as soon as you start to roll. Like, that's how it goes, right? Hey, what's been one of the biggest surprises? So you've had some experience of ministry, but when it comes to the campus pastor specific role, what was one of the biggest surprises you found out, you saw, you caught whenever you stepped into this role?
Yeah, I'd say how hard it is.
Okay.
I feel much more confident in it now, but I think that learning curve early on, specifically with a couple things. So number one, like you are carrying culture at a distance, which is always difficult, right? Like you want to make sure you're above board with that and honoring to your church, honoring to the pastors. But also just, I think the expectations people have of you then, because you get some people who, as much as we love them, they tend to take that distance as like, oh, well, now we can do what we want. And this is the guy that's going to give us permission. And so you have to like, just, especially early on, it feels like you are saying no so many times and having to do that in a gracious way where you're not crushing somebody's spirit, but you're also like, man, this is bigger than us. It's bigger than one location. It's bigger than, just the best idea that you might have. Like, this is an us thing. It's a unity thing. And so that was just really difficult early on. And the thing that I just keep coming back to, like, even every time we've started another campus, it's been like, here comes our season of gracious no's.
Yeah.
Which is always a lot.
Man, I love that. I'm actually going to write that. I'm going to steal that. The season of gracious no's. That is going to probably be the title of this podcast. That is such a good way to put that. Cause I'm with you. So I wasn't the first campus pastor at the campus I'm at. I was actually the fourth one in about 4 years. We kind of went through a season between COVID and everything else. And so a lot of transition. And so, yeah, but I definitely felt that, like, as soon as I stepped into the role, it was the immediate, like, every meeting I had is, hey, what if we did this? Hey, how about have you ever thought of, and the season of gracious no's is such a good way of communicating that it's just part of the role. But man, what a way to communicate that. I like that. It really is. And it's the unity thing. I love that you spoke to that already. Like when we're in this context of campus pastoring, multi-site world. And I would say for most, like there's a lot of different variations of multi-site, but for the most part, it's multiplication through DNA and culture. And such an important thing to keep that in alignment. So that's so good.
And we have that added wrinkle that's a little different for most of, like, I'm live preaching most of the time, right? And that even adds this thing of like, I've had to make sure every Sunday I'm mentioning, whether it's up front, honoring our co-lead pastors, Lance and Angel Probsky, or even in the midst of the sermon, trying to like make sure there's some kind of mention of what's happening in our church across locations. Even when I'm here, I'm at our original location right now to record this. When I'm here on a Sunday, which happens a few times a year, just making sure, man, we're super honoring on the front end, talking about
That's
how
good.
much we love our pastors and not just what they do, but who they are. Because once again, I think people are, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They're well meaning, right? But they like to attach themselves to a person or an
Yeah.
idea
Oh, yeah.
sometimes. And you're just like, man, it's bigger than just me, right? And so
Correct.
always pointing to the bigger whole, the bigger church. It's going to be here longer than any of us, right? And so, Lord willing, uh, yeah, just keep pumping that up.
No, 100%. And man, I tell you what, I'm with you on that. So I actually live teach at ours too. Ours was kind
Mm-hmm.
of one of those things came out of COVID and trying to keep the church alive. We just went to live teaching and just
Mm-hmm.
haven't looked back as of yet. So,
Yeah.
but it is one of those things of like, how can I constantly be keeping my lead pastor in the forefront of our church's mind? And we get creative. I mean, there is some ways that you can do that, right? Like whether it's you communicating it, we even try to do either have him in or even video him in from time to time just to continue like
Mm-hmm.
he's our lead, like he's our pastor is what I always reference him as, right? Like not my pastor, he's our pastor. Like I
Mm-hmm.
get to pastor you guys, but he's ultimately the guy who's lead. God's blessed him, anointed him as our
Yeah.
lead pastor, and that's such an important role. And it's one of those things. And most people most people don't understand the concepts of even like a the multi-site church, but like they understand like okay, like Starbucks are all Starbucks, right? Like they're all owned by the
Mm-hmm.
same guy, but they
Yeah.
don't understand that churches can similarly function in that same way.
Yes.
And not that
Yep.
Starbucks is a great model to say, hey, like that's super model, but I'm just saying like the
Yeah.
concept of like we're all one. We have
Yes.
a lead, and it's all working together. All Starbucks work
Mm-hmm.
together. Well, all of Radiant churches are working together
Yep.
for the same good. That's such a good
Yeah.
thing, man.
Yeah. And we try to use the language a lot. Like, if there's anything you love about this church, it started 13 years ago when the Perupskis got hired here, right? So
There you
like,
go.
if you love the culture of our church, like, man, we just walked into that, right? Like
Yeah,
we didn't
that is
we didn't
good.
make this, we just carry it. And
Just
so
carry, yeah.
constantly trying to show people, man, they're killing it. We love them, we appreciate them, and trying not to make it sound like we're drinking Kool-Aid, right? But like we
I've been
genuine we want to do it from a genuine place.
I've been
But
asked that before. I love that you said that because
yeah,
I've been told that before. Oh, you're just a Kool-Aid drinker. I legit had that conversation one time.
yeah.
So
And
the
isn't it
winds of
like
being a
this?
campus
Yeah.
pastor.
But even at that, isn't that like discouraging to think like that our culture, even in our churches, can be at a place where like honor sounds like you're just full of whatever, right? Like
Yeah,
you don't really like, do you really believe that? Do you really think that's, I mean, it's amazing to think that's where we're at, that people don't get honor or just
yeah.
respect sometimes, right?
Yeah, and you
So
would think of all places, the church is a place that we should see that first and
yeah.
foremost, right? Like,
Yeah.
I actually had a campus pastor. He's not in campus ministry anymore. He's at district level ministry now. But he told me this one time, and I tell you what, this is like this thing hit me to my core when he told me. He said, my fellowship is so good, you confuse it with leadership."
Mm, that's awesome.
Dude, like as soon as he
That's
told
so
me that,
good.
I'm just like, I have to process that. Like, and that was his thing when he was a campus pastor. He said, my fellowship is so good, you confuse it with leadership. You think I'm
Hmm.
leading this place. You think I'm leading this thing when really I'm following my lead pastor. And
Yeah.
that like that rocked me to my core. I wasn't
That's
even
so
planning. It's
good.
not even my notes, but we got on
Yep.
this conversation. I'm like, it resonates in my back of my brain. I always try to my fellowship's so good, confused with leadership. All right, let's jump in. We have some topics we want to cover today. You've had a very interesting, like in a positive way, interesting uh, approach or journey, I guess we'll call it, into being a campus pastor. And so you were originally a lead church planter, right?
Yep.
Who then
Yep.
transitioned into being a campus pastor. So I think this is going to be something that we probably see more in the multi-site world
Hmm.
because we're seeing more church mergers like your guys's starting to happen. So speak to the campus pastor who just went through the merger and is like, man, did I make the right decision? And or the church pastor who's considering it, who's at that decision point of, man, like I have this bigger church who wants us to merge with them and be a campus. I don't know what to do. Speak to those
Hmm.
guys real quick on what that was like for you.
Yeah, I would say, and we have the benefit here of the most recent campus we started back in the fall. We have the pastor of the church that merged in with us still on staff, and so I was able to walk him through a lot of this stuff. And one of the things I told him early on was like, just be ready for the tension, man. Like you're taking this church that you birthed, right? Or in some cases, maybe like for him, his name's Chuck. He stewarded it for 19 years,
Okay.
and you look at that and go, you have put your blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, and now you are entrusting it to someone else, and it's not like you can halfway entrust it to your pastors now. Like once you've given it, it's not yours. And so I think that's probably for me one of the hardest things early on, and something I've tried to help him with, and I would help others with, is, man, it's gonna be a blow to your ego, and you're gonna have to retrain your brain constantly,
That's good.
right? Like there's gonna be times where people would come to you that now you're going to have to be okay with them maybe going to somebody else, or things that you would get to call the shot on that now you can't. And I remember even for us coming from the church planning world, if we had an idea on a Monday, we could execute it and make it happen by like Tuesday.
Right.
We just ran, right? Because you're in like startup mode. You get into an established church like the one we're a part of now that's been around for almost 90 years, and you go, yeah, we don't do it like that. And so you got to actually like present ideas more than half baked.
Yeah.
You can't just go for it because you wanted to. So I would say that's the big thing, is just be ready to die to yourself over and over and over again, and adjust your expectations. Be willing to slow down, be patient, because you've got to learn a whole new church. But then that church and that team is also trying to learn you. And so some of it, just as much as you might want it to go quickly, it just takes time. I'd say for the pastor that's like, how did you put it? Somebody who's, looking at maybe merging in. I think the big thing is you've got to really think if you're going to be a part of it, and that's not always the case, right? Like we were a part of the church we merged into, the church that became our newest campus is that way. If you're going to be around, you got to really know, hey, can I serve this church and these pastors specifically
It's
with
good.
everything I've got, right?
It's
Like
good.
it's not yours anymore. So you're actually lining up under the authority of somebody else and saying, I've got to submit to them, because how you submit to them is going to be a model for people moving forward. Right. And so you don't
Yeah.
want to kill it before it starts. But yeah, it's a lot of just, man, God checking your heart. And I think it's something he can use to really mature us. One of the guys at our church that I love to talk to, he was an associate pastor for his whole career, and missionary for a while. He said, one of the things you got to realize is like, man, every church around is lead pastor driven and lead pastor focused. So when you go from being a lead to now being any kind of second chair role, you're going to hear your name a lot less, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to maybe get celebrated less, which my pastors do an awesome job of celebrating me and my wife, but
Yep.
just from people in general, right? Like it's
Yep.
just the game changes. And I think you're not fully ready for it because you don't even, I think, when you're a lead pastor, fully see the way other people defer to you or look to you, that now all of a sudden stepping out of that, you go, I used to be in that. I used to have that conversation. It just changes. And so just being ready for that season of adjustment takes a lot.
Let's talk a little bit more to that mindset shift, right? Because that's what this is ultimately coming down to, I think.
Hmm.
And if you talked about just being a campus pastor, again, whether it was in transition or whether you're getting hired on as a campus pastor, there is the mindset and of, hey, what the way I approach this, the thought process I have when it comes to the leadership, the lead pastor, function of the church, all of those things, it
Hmm.
ultimately comes down to how you approach it with your mindset. What were maybe some tangible, practical ways that you dealt with the mindset shift when you were in transition?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was probably communication, right? So it's mindset, but I think it's also what you verbalize in that mindset. And so there's a lot of times it feels like you're just losing a lot and you don't always verbalize all the things you're gaining, right? So, for example, one of the things I jokingly say all the time is like, man, I get to pastor and not oversee a whole budget for a church.
Bro, I
Come
say
on,
that,
right?
dude. I say that all the
All
time.
the
It's the
time.
reason that alone makes
Yeah.
campus pastoring the best job in the world. Is I don't have to
Yes.
worry about budget, bro.
Yes. Dude, I don't have to think about it. I will turn off lights. I will make sure the
Yeah,
heat's down. Like
yeah,
we'll
all that.
steward
It's
it,
great.
but I don't have to
I
create
don't
it. I
have
don't
to
have to do all
make.
those
Oh,
things.
let's go.
So I think keeping an eye on the things that you gain, right? There's a freedom and a flexibility in this role that I think sometimes immaturity doesn't understand because once again, like we tend to see leads, especially if you're in a spot where you're not preaching frequently and you kind of think of all the things you're not doing that when you felt called to ministry, you probably felt called to. So I would say, what you communicate, what you verbalize matters. And I think who you communicate to. I
Okay.
think one of the best things I did early on was I realized you can't just talk to your spouse about it all the time because
Yeah.
they're also transitioning and changing, and especially depending on what role you're coming out of to step into the campus pastor role. Having somebody you trust but that is also willing to be honest with you, that when you're processing things, they're hearing you, but they're also bringing you back to reality, right? And so, yeah, communication, what you verbalize, who you verbalize it to, is massive.
How did you? How was the conversations like? How did you approach the conversations with during the transition or even
Hmm.
like right thereafter with now having a lead pastor as being a former lead pastor? Like, let's talk about that for a moment because I think that's part of that mindset shift and that communication. I love that you brought that up. How
Hmm.
did you communicate with him when you were maybe wrestling with things?
Yeah. So if I'm being honest, I didn't put a ton on either him or Angel, his wife. Like I didn't feel like necessarily that was their burden to carry.
Okay.
They had a lot on their plate adjusting to me because once again, I tend to be very opinionated, very strong-willed, and so I tried being really gracious with them on that. Um, I feel like really with them, it was more trying to take on a posture of like learning. So
There you
observing
go.
them and
Okay.
going, okay, how did they communicate? Because that's also the complexity with like co-lead pastors. They're both awesome, but they communicate very differently from each other, right? Like there's not a one size fits all.
Hmm.
So I think it was more for me, like, how do I take on a posture of learning? How do I just get time with them? Because just because I came on staff didn't mean all of a sudden they had more time,
Right.
right? So I
Yeah.
had to kind of figure out how do I get in their office? How do I get time with them? Really trying to make sure early on, like my commitment before we even fully stepped in was I want to be easy to lead. And so in
Ooh,
that,
that's
there's a lot of
good.
stuff where I go, I have to wrestle down, is the weight I'm carrying, is that just for me personally? If it is, hey, I can process that with them. They're here for it, but I don't have to, right?
That's so
I
good.
can process that with somebody else. If it's something with the church, then yeah, let's talk about it. Uh, but yeah, just trying to learn from them and be around them. Because at the end of the day, once again, I'm stewarding their vision now. And so I've got to figure that out early on. Hey, how do we make the most of this thing that they've given me now to be a part of?
I love that you just said it's the irony of this is like so you just talked about is like you got to internalize it first. It's like is
Hmm.
this something I'm making a thing about or is this something that I need to have a conversation about? I literally just this morning I'm not even making this up. Just this morning I was meeting with my lead. So we're doing Easter prep. This is Easter week. This podcast won't come out till way in May, but we're in Easter week right now. And so for us at our church, we both live teach, but we teach predominantly the same message. Like we prep together, and so the bulk of the message is very similar in nature. It's our own stories and our own
Hmm.
jokes and us,
Yeah.
but for the most part,
Yep.
the sermon is the same. And so, and that's actually a thing I love because my lead pastor, I got a great relationship with him. He's been my mentor for almost 8 years
Mm.
and I've only been on staff for 4 years. And so like he's been mentoring me well into my time in ministry. But I literally just had the conversation with him this morning where I told him I was like, because I was wrestling with something of a conversation we had yesterday, and he could tell I was wrestling with something. And so he asked me, and I'm like, well, I had to like I had to internalize it first. I had to figure out is this something that I'm making a thing about, or is this
Hmm.
something that is a thing that I need to bring and have this conversation about? I said, as a campus pastor, I told him, I said, as a campus pastor, I said, I do this not, this is what I do nonstop. I have to ask anytime we shift, and so we have a central team that helps build our systems and process. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you guys do it that way,
Yep.
but
Same thing.
yeah. So like every time they, shift something or change something a little bit here or there. Not that I'm against change. I'm a big change guy, but it's like, was that, I've been around the church longer than anybody else on our staff besides my lead, my XP. Like, and so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
anytime something shifts, I'm like, is that the best? Is that the best
Yeah.
decision? And so, but first I have to, as a campus pastor, I got to take that in and say, hang on. Is this worth having a conversation about, or am I just making something out of nothing?
Yeah.
And so I'm so love that you brought that up, because again, this is why we're building this community here, is because campus pastors were dealing and wrestling with things as that only campus pastors are going to. We're the only ones sitting back saying, hey, is this am I making something here? Because
Yeah.
like I'm trying to be a lead pastor and I'm not a lead pastor for a moment. Like, am I overstepping myself, or is this something that really needs to be addressed as a church as a whole, as our staff, right? And so,
Yeah.
man, that's so good. I love this.
Well, and the
I
more
love
you
this.
build that trust with them, right? The more
Yeah.
you communicate with them. Like, so even today we have our staff meeting this morning, and there was like an idea that was brought up, and I literally was like internalizing right then, like, I don't know if I'm meant to share right now. But
I
Angel,
got an opinion though.
yeah, one of our co-leads, she looks at me and she like gives me the look like, you want to say something, but I was sitting
Yeah.
there like, I don't know. And a couple of minutes went by and she just looked at me. She's like, what are you thinking? Right. And I think that's once again, the great thing of like, you get a great relationship with your leads. They're going to even
100%.
understand when do we need to ask this guy or girl the question? And when is it just like if I looked at her and said, hey, that's just not for now, she would have trusted me. But just having that relationship that you only build over time to be like, and I think that's once again the gift of when you don't bring everything to your leads,
Oh, 100%.
right? Like it's not even that you're shielding them from it. It's just not necessary, right? And so when they even can tell, hey, you are already processing and filtering things, they'll come to you, right? And they'll trust you
Yeah.
on that.
No, 100%. I love that, because and one of the ways you can do that, and I shared this on the episode I did, so the solo episode I did, was, hey, just because you have a problem, like first off, you make sure you have a solution. Don't just be a problem finder. Nobody wants a problem finder. People want
No.
problem solvers. And
Mm-hmm.
so not only do you need to process it based off of your experience and your campus, but don't create a problem that you ain't planning on trying to speak into. But don't
Yep.
marry the solution as well, because that's not what we do
Mm-hmm.
as campus pastors. We're not
Yeah.
solution.
Nope.
We just don't want to be the guy that only just brings up problems. But I
Yeah.
love that you said that, because there's people think that because you're a campus pastor, you are the Kool-Aid guy. You're just there to say yes, sir. You're just running the playbook. But no, like, we're done well, and I understand
Mm-hmm.
like context matters, but
Yeah.
here's two different multi-site churches, and one in Ohio, one in
Mm-hmm.
Illinois, and both of them, like, I'm very much the same way. I'm a challenger at by heart, and so I challenge things on a regular basis. Now, only things that matter, like I pick and choose, right? But just because I'm a campus pastor doesn't mean I'm not having a voice into what's happening inside the big church. But I'm, of course, first thinking about it as a context of my location, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's such a
Yeah.
good thing, man.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my lines with my leads is, if I ever am not sure if I'm about to step into something I don't need to step into, I'll just tell them, hey, I'm going to say this, and if you don't like it, just tell me to shut up, and I'll stop. And then I'll say the thing. And like, to their credit, they've never told me to shut up.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but they've never
I
told me to. But I think it comes back to like, I even trying to have the self awareness of like, I'm not 100% sure that what I'm about to like scratch at, I should scratch at, but I'll say it. And if you want it to be done, it can be done. Because once again, I don't think anybody wants a campus pastor that's just a yes guy, right?
No, I don't
Like
think
you,
so.
yeah. I mean, you want to have somebody who aligns with you, but we're not
Correct.
going to agree with everything, right?
Correct.
And that's okay. And making that clear.
And that's what I've tried to always communicate with my lead, is that, hey, like, I may challenge things from time to time, some big, some small. I try to be very particular, but I may challenge things. But at the end of the day, what you say goes.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
that's fine, and I'm okay with that. And I think that is a uniqueness that sitting in this role, you have to be able to say, like, hey, at the end of the day, I'll challenge, I'll whatever. But if it's not a theology issue that you're dealing with, as far as whatever your denomination falls in, whatever. If you're not a theology issue, which really comes down to heaven or hell, Jesus on the cross, like outside of that, like let's not get
Yep.
too crazy, right? And it's not illegal, right? Like, what are we doing here, right? Like otherwise, like challenge and stuff. But at the end of the day, like let it go. Most things that we're going to be arguing and discussing are not things that are worth splitting up over
Yeah.
and getting
Yeah. They
holding on
feel like
to,
a big
right?
deal now, right? But they're
Yeah.
not. They're
Yeah.
usually not.
100%. 100%. 100%. All right, let's keep rolling. So we talked about the transition. So we've transitioned into this campus pastor role. We've synced up. We're getting connected with our lead. Such an important capacity is hey, trying to have those, which can be challenging, right? Of trying to find time with them, depending on context. It all matters. When it comes to maybe how do I want to say this? There could be misconceptions, and we've talked about a couple of them. What's a big misconception you think that's out there about campus pastors that you would say, at least in your context? So far, we're agreeing on everything about 100%.
Yeah.
So probably my context, like most contexts, like what would you
Yeah.
say is a misconception out there that's probably not as true as what people think?
Yeah. I would say one of the big ones, and maybe and this could just be like insecurity, right? So I'll be honest with that. But it feels like from time to time, people look at you as a campus pastor and think, well, you're a junior varsity leader, right? Like you couldn't play varsity, especially for like somebody like me. I think the way people naturally look at it is they go, you took a step back
Yeah.
and got into
Wow.
that role. And I had to be incredibly confident saying, like, I might have taken what looks like a step back, but we took a step back so the kingdom could take a massive step forward.
Bro, you don't
And I
preach.
think being okay with that, I consistently, it's one of those things like you'll get people who are like, hey, let me, I want to talk to the real pastor, right? I don't get that as much. I don't get that as much, but like I got a lot of friends that get that. And so I think just, yeah, dealing with that misconception of like, just because you are in a second chair, right? Which really is
Mm-hmm.
any role that's not the lead,
Correct.
doesn't make you a second rate leader, right? And
No.
in fact, I would say there are a lot of leads that couldn't do this job, right?
100%.
Because there's such a tension with it. And so I think it's being okay with being misunderstood. That like, yeah, you're not second rate just because you're in the second chair. You're actually doing something that's like you're threading a needle that not I think a lot of people can't thread.
No, I think you hit it on the head. And especially when you said like there's lead pass, like I would say, and lead pastors, we love you. Most could not do this job. Why? Because it takes a number two mindset. It takes that
Mm-hmm.
mindset shift of saying, hey, I'm not the vision creator. I'm the vision carrier. I'm not the one who's making the ultimate decision. Like I love my lead pastor. He would struggle because he's been a lead pastor for 15, 20 years. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
for him now, like, I mean,
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, if he would have went into this role, yeah, I mean, yeah, he was a lot younger, hadn't experienced, but most
Mm-hmm.
lead pastors who've been lead pastors right now, I would wholeheartedly agree. And if they don't, then we'll have them on and have a conversation. But
Yeah.
it does. It takes a
Yeah.
unique
Yeah.
mindset to say, hey, like I'm okay with not making that decision. I'm okay with people coming up and saying, oh, well, who's going to actually make this decision? Let
Yeah.
me talk to that guy. Go talk to
Yeah.
that guy. He's going to give you the same
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. Well, and
That's my
and here's the
favorite
thing
one
too.
because
Oh yeah.
I'm so in
Yeah. We've
tune with
already
my
talked
lead
about it.
pastor. Like
Yeah.
it's like you go ahead, you can go have that car. I had that
Yeah.
early on, especially when I first started as a campus pastor, and that tension of some
Mm-hmm.
leaders in the church who didn't like my no, or how I say
Yep.
that season of gracious no's that you mentioned, right? And then I got I'm going to meet with with your pastor, with the lead pastor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
Now, don't be
It might
wrong.
not be as gracious of a no, right? But it'll
Young
be no.
campus pastors out there, like that's something that
Mm-hmm.
you have. Like I'm in my mid-30s. I've experienced ministry my whole life. I've been in leadership different parts of leadership across my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've grown thick skin. that is a thick skin thing to be able to,
Yes.
somebody comes to you and says, hey, well, I'm just going to go talk to the lead pastor. And you're like, all right.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I
And
wasn't
that,
always that way.
yeah,
I quickly
no,
got that way because I realized, well, my lead pastor's got my back. Like he's the one that put me in this
yeah,
position. Like,
yeah,
like if he
yeah,
didn't trust me to make a decision,
yes,
he wouldn't have put me here. Like I got to
yeah,
trust him that he's going to have my back. He's not going to throw me under the bus. Right. Like, so,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is a tough one, but that's good.
yep,
That is so good. All right. Let's
yeah.
talk about, we got some time here. If we had a campus pastor stepping into the role, again, merger or maybe just getting hired on, right? You got a young guy out
Hmm.
here, older guy, whichever. You got a guy out here. He's just interviewed and offered a position to be a campus pastor. What would be the top priorities in the first 90 days of being a campus pastor?
Yeah. So I would say first thing, you've got to know or learn what success looks like to your pastor, right? So you can hit home runs all day in what you think is a win, but if it's not a
Yeah,
win for them, it's not a win, right? And
that's good.
so I think learning what moves the needle for the church, what is it that your pastor is excited about, what's important to them, because over time, all that's going to do is give you the relational equity to do other things, right? But at first, man, you got to get a hit where they want you to get a hit. I would say the other thing is learning how your pastor works. So I can remember, once again, I'm idea guy. I love just, let's just toss it out there. Let's see what sticks. And like my pastors love that. But there's also this aspect of them where they go, but you can't bring it to me like 10% developed. So I can
Okay.
remember I'd been on staff for maybe a month, and my pastor, Lance, he calls me. I'm shopping at Target. I can remember exactly what aisle I was in. And he just said, hey, here's how things are going to work best for us. If you have an idea, bring it to me like 80%. Like do the research,
Okay.
figure out the cost, figure out what's going to be involved, then bring it to me. If it's cool, we'll go with it. We'll get it to 100%. But he wants me to bring it to him in a way that's not just like making him do the work, right?
Okay.
And I think
Yeah,
that's
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 good.
one of the things for campus pastors. Like your job is to make your lead pastor's job easier.
Yeah.
That's not all you do, but that is something you should be doing. And so, like you said, we're not just noticing problems, but we're bringing some solutions. But then holding those solutions with an open hand to say
100%.
you might have a
Yeah.
better idea on this, or
Yeah.
even the same thing. Like when we're prepping a sermon together, I'll go, man, I know there's a better way to say this. I'm assuming you're going to know it here in just a minute, right? But I give him at least like, here's the thought, and then
Hmm.
let's tool with it. Let's figure it out. But yeah, I think knowing what success looks like, figuring out how they work, what's important to them in that whole process. And I would just say, man, the relational equity that you have to build early on, both with your pastor and with the rest of that team, really matters because we're similar to you. We have a central services model. So we have two of us that are at the campus pretty much full time. And then the rest of everybody's at our kind of original location.
Yep.
Um,
Pretty
we
similar to
depend on
us.
them for a lot of things,
Everything. Yeah.
right? A lot of things. And you have to, once again, like I talked about threading that needle, you got to figure out sometimes, like, how do I say the hard thing when I have zero authority over you, right? Like all I've got is influence. The only way I build that influence, though, is just that time, right? So how do
Right.
I get time with this team, figure them out? We were really lucky. We knew most of the team that we joined
Okay.
beforehand from like being youth pastors together and just past experience. But even that was still like it's different when you're working with somebody, and so figuring some of those things out, you got to give it the time.
No, I think that's really good. It is. It's one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is how do I build relationship equity with our central team when I don't get a lot of time with those guys.
Hmm.
And even like the Sunday, like a lot of them dual hat because we're not a real big church, so they have central capacity, but they also do some location specific stuff at our
Hmm.
original location. And uh, so I don't see them even on Sundays very often at my location. And so that was a whole nother thing I had to get used to, right? Was like, well, I don't always have all the team
Yeah.
over, right? Like they're always
Yeah.
at the other, well, and that's okay because like that's not how it's supposed to, not how it works. And but finding the time to build the relationship equity with those guys, so then when I did have an issue at our location, So like ours is broken down. We got youth, we got kids, we got creative arts, we got next steps. It's kind of like the four main areas, right? And so anytime I did have an issue in one of those areas, I had to be able to figure out how to get some relationship equity before I started bringing all these problems up.
Hmm.
And and
Yeah.
and and that could be hard. That could be really hard, especially like some of ours we hired from within, some of them hired from out of state. And so those guys, it's
Mm.
like you're just trying to get to know who they are, period, let alone trying to
Yeah.
build relationship equity to have a ministry conversation. So
Yep. Yeah.
what were some mistakes that you made early on? Let's do full transparency, right? Like what were some mistakes we made early on that has shaped your approach now better as a campus pastor?
Well, man, I would say number one was probably just letting my attitude get the best of me early on. There was just times where I don't have a great poker face. I
Okay.
think it's better now than it used to be. At least I think. My pastors might disagree, but yeah,
Well,
just
ask
just
your
trying to have a
wife.
good attitude. Yeah, my wife will tell you she disagrees for sure. I would say that was a big one, and then yeah, I would say just honestly, it's so easy to take things so incredibly personally when it's
That's
not
good.
personal,
Yeah.
and so just relaxing, right? Like we learned early on, like I was probably also a little too passive. So I probably overcorrected coming from the lead pastor role of
Okay.
like, I just want to support and honor and serve. But there were times where it's like, no, my voice was actually needed and
Yeah.
I probably didn't speak up. Right. And I don't
Okay.
know how you would necessarily get better at that early on other than just like, man, journal, right? Have some like self-awareness to go, here's where I missed it. Because then you're building those patterns where you can see it. But yeah, just probably being a little too passive. Once again, my pastors might disagree with that, but it's just, yeah, you're dealing with a lot of tension early on. It feels like you get pushed into the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd also probably say early on, have a little bit more grace for yourself, right? Work hard, love your church, but like give yourself some grace. You're figuring it out. Most churches that are going multi site, it's brand new for them too. And so everybody just has to be gracious with everybody.
Yeah, again, the whole reason we're starting the Campus Pastor Collective is because there's not a lot of campus pastor resources out there, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think everybody's in the same boat for the most part of trying to figure this thing
Hmm.
out, and that's what we're doing here together is figuring this thing out. All right, so let's wrap this thing up. Campus pastors are listening, right? You gotta, let's say you're at your church, you have a campus pastor conference happening at Radiant, and you have a room full of campus pastors. What's the
Hmm.
one piece of advice you're going to give them?
Yeah. I would say learn your lead pastors
Okay,
and then love them well,
that's
right?
good.
Like learn who they are, everything we've already said, right? What matters to them, how they communicate. You are ultimately there to serve God, yes, but you're serving God by serving them and serving their
Correct.
vision.
Oh,
And
100%.
so there's nothing more important than that. Just constantly doing that and understanding, just like you change over time, they're going to change over time. And so, like, learning your lead pastors can't be something you do early and then never again. You got to be willing to like slow down, adjust. If you need to apologize, apologize. But like, just learning and loving your lead pastor or lead pastors, probably the biggest thing.
That's so good. I used to always, so I started serving. Of course, like I said, my lead pastor is my mentor for years before I started on staff, and so I used to always call myself his armor bearer. That was my role was as a
Yeah.
volunteer was just like, especially on Sundays, like whatever he needed, I made sure he was taken care of. He didn't lift a finger come Sunday. That dude just needed to preach, right? And when I moved into the campus pastor role, it was harder to do that. But what I've discovered was is I'm still that. Like that's still
Hmm.
my what I and he hates when I say this. To be honest, like if you ever asked him, he'd be like, I hate he said that because it sounds like this very servant but to me it is like that's the role that I believe God has placed me under his leadership is to be the guy who serves him. And until God releases me from that, like that's where I'm at, right? And so and I enjoy it. Like that's the thing I keep circling back to
Hmm.
is being a campus pastor to me is the
Yeah.
greatest ministry position in the world. We're doing you talked about that earlier is like we get to pastor people not worry about budgets like we as campus pastors take out the preaching, right? Like we get to both preach
Hmm.
take out the preaching. What do you get into ministry for?
Yeah.
to take care of people. And that's what
Yep.
we get to do is we're building teams, we're taking care of people, we're ministering to our people at our locations.
Hmm.
We're doing all the pastoring things that we got into ministry to do. Some guys may just not get to preach on Sunday. And I've told mine before, like, hey, if that went away, like, so be it. I'm still doing all the stuff I want to do as
Hmm.
being a pastor.
Yeah.
25 minutes on a Sunday is not making you a pastor.
Yep.
Let me
No.
make sure you all understand that 25
No.
minutes on Sunday does not make you a pastor.
And honestly, we tell our team all the time, and I fully believe it. Like, some of the best ministry you get to do is the weeks you're not preaching,
Oh,
because then you
100%.
don't have to be in the pre-service meeting. You don't have to worry about all these details. I
I
can
save a
just
whole
stand there.
day. Yeah, I
Yeah.
save a whole
Oh
day of
yeah.
my week of no sermon prep. A good 8 to 10 hours of my week is now freed up where I get to go do a lot of other ministry
Yeah.
than sitting in a now. Not that I don't love studying God's word, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's a lot of work whenever it's for a
Yep.
Sunday sermon versus just
Yeah.
studying to study. So
Yep.
that's
Absolutely.
good, man. We're gonna follow
Yeah.
those guys. Lead pastors are such an important piece. Hey, how can we connect with you? We got listeners that want to connect with Anthony Johnson. They want to figure out how to connect with you. What's the best way to connect?
Yeah. So best way, social media, Instagram is probably the easiest place. My handle is just PS, short for Pastor, PS Anthony J. Also, email Anthony at myrlc.family. Would love to hang out, connect, especially if you're like in the whole getting ready to launch a campus thing. Like, one of the things I get to do in Ohio, where I'm at, is I get to serve church planners. In fact, I get off this call and doing that tonight with quite a few church planners and helping them get started and go strong. And so, yeah, would love to be a part of your journey, answer any questions I can, and help out.
Great. All right, we'll put your handle down below in the description. That way, you guys can connect with Anthony. Yeah, and if you're out there in that northeast Ohio region, man, you got to hit this guy
Yep.
up, right? Take him out
Yeah.
for some coffee and
Would love it.
and
Yeah.
pick his brain, right? All right,
Yeah.
Anthony, thank you for joining us today. All of you guys out there, thank you for joining the Campus Pastor Collective today. We hope that you guys are able to take something home with you, something that you can learn from, something you can grow from. As always, we want you to be a part of what we're doing here. If you are interested in being on the show, reach out, let us know. Also, join the Facebook group. It's where we continue the conversation that we're having here with Anthony today. Until next time, thank you for joining the collective.